Thank you, everybody, for attending this webinar on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We are talking about real estate investment, and particularly today I brought our special guest, Susan Flanagan. I might excuse if I'm telling you not properly. Excuse my French. And yeah, we are having another session, and as the beginning of every session, I'm going to take you through some of the stuff that are always presented. The goal of this real estate investment here is to help you move from what we call an average investor to a savvy investor. Clear indication of average investor here is that you're always thinking, you hope, you wish, you guess, I assume, and speculations. That's typically what we see in average investor. A savvy investor is looking at numbers and go ahead, doesn't waste any time, and would get the right property. I'm going to discuss it with you shortly of the market activities right now as we speak from last few months, what's happening in the market. That will give you a guideline of what to do next. Looking at the activities that happened for July 2020. Now looking at the blue graph, this is comparison from last year and this year, July 2019 and July 2020. The market activities means the number of transactions was 29.5% higher than last year. So there's no discouragement, people continue buying. And the seasonally adjusted one is on the right side. It shows the growth that happened, the number of transactions from last month to this month, from June to July. Now, this is something some of you might be interested. What's happened in the price, selling price last year to this year. This year is 16.9% higher than last year. This is a general number. Of course, if you want to look at any neighborhoods, that you have to be more particular and look at that neighborhood because the growth in different neighborhoods are different. At the right side, seasonally adjusted, month of June to July 2020, the market went up 5%. I remember May to June was 9.5%, if I'm not mistaken, but this month still grow. Now, this is the new listing. This new listing would help you to understand if the market is a seller's market or buyer's market. Look at the orange line, which represents July 2020. You see the number of inventory in the market is much higher than what we had before. So that shows that there are more sellers on the market try to sell their property, and that's why the activity is higher. Now, if you go back to April, you see there were less homes on the market, and that was the reason why April and May prices, despite of coronavirus, still kept very solid and very healthy. Now, this graph shows sales to new listing ratio. This is the market activity in terms of whatever comes to the market, if it sells or it doesn't. So as you can see right now, look at the orange line, 2020. Imagine that line was 10%. 10% means there is no buyer in the market. 10% means there were some properties came up on the market, but the transaction was almost close to nothing. But right now we have 60% of whatever comes to the market sells. So that shows a strong market. Okay, just quickly, I came across this condos is a new project happening in Mississauga. I thought maybe I quickly bring it up to you. I have some of the information here. It is strategically is not, first of all, I'm not a pro condo investment because of the maintenance fee, but recently for last 3 years, condo was very, very much in terms of growth happened there. We're talking about traditional market. Condominium was not, and it's not always the greatest investment. I believe in buying land where the house is sitting, because after all, rule of thumb, it is the land that appreciates. The properties, they are depreciating, and look at your revenue Canada tax comes to your house. It shows that your property is depreciating and your land is appreciating. So talking about that, condominium these days, I'm not saying condominium is the best option, best investment. However, I'm not generalizing. There are some condominiums that made amazing money for the clients. So I'm not generalizing this, but particularly you have to look at each investment separately. So this new condominium in Mississauga has a logistic and a strong position that makes it some kind of interesting for investment and for rental. If you need more information on this one, just send me an email. Learning tools and materials that I always cover for you guys. If you are interested in getting more information, learning more about real estate investment, I have tons of YouTube clip and videos that you can go and use it. Just type in Ashton Ekbatani and you can go to my YouTube channel, and remember to subscribe as well, because every few days I load it up with new learning material. This is my Facebook for investors. You can always go there and as well as become a member and learn new things as well. These are some of the books I published in the past. Feel free to go to amazon.com and grab them. And voila, our special guest, Susan Flanagan. Finally, I pronounced it properly. Thank you very much, Susan, for coming here. Susan is in the real estate investment for more than 25 years. She has a lot of experience. She dealt with different scenarios. She went through buy and hold, rent to own, and name it. She is also, I think you're the owner of your company, right, Susan?
Yes.
Okay, so Susan has the company called Private Money for Mortgages, and she is lending. And also for you, you can be either a lender or you can borrow the money from Susan. So Susan is going to tell us how even a private lenders can help you exceed your real estate investment. And she's done that before. So I leave this platform to Susan to lead the way. Go ahead, Susan. And thank you for being here.
There, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Before we
okay.
go further, Lola, you want to tell us how I can have Susan's full screen here?
Yeah, I can see both of you actually, but if Susan wants to share her screen, Ash, you're gonna have to stop sharing, then go to your settings.
Yes.
Or the options, and then click it, and you have to click enable the audience or participants to be able to share screen. So the option, did you see options?
Maybe I go to multiple participants.
Yes.
Okay, I did, and I don't have Susan here. Susan, are you up there?
Do you want to try share screen?
I think you have to put me in as
You're good.
as a host with you to be able to put me up there.
No, I think we have you. You're okay.
Am I up? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
You want to try sharing your screen, Susan?
No, I'm sharing what screen? I'm not doing a presentation. It's me.
Oh, okay.
No. I don't. That's what I told. Yeah, Ashton. It's more of a
talk. Okay.
a talk.
Okay,
today.
you have the
Yes.
floor. Go ahead, Susan.
Okay. Oh, I'm seeing you. I don't know if I'm supposed to be up there or not.
Good.
Okay. Yes, sorry, everybody, a little confusion there. Yes, just to introduce myself, as Ashton was saying, my name is Susan Flanagan, and I have been involved in real estate investing for more than 25 years. I started by accident, as many people do. It's not like I chose to jump into to become an investor. I was a registered nurse for over 30 years, and along the way, when I first bought my first property, I bought it for myself, but then I realized, you can make money doing this rather than just, keeping it as your own personal residence. And that started me on a journey. I was living in Canmore at the time, Canmore, Alberta. I was more into skiing and partying than anything. However, I was smart enough to go, there's money to be made here if I do this properly. So, so what I did actually, I mean, I ended up not even living in the condominium that I bought as my first property, and I made more money by renting it out and living elsewhere. And it just started the trend, and it piqued my interest to want to learn more. Fast forwarding over the years, I have pretty well worked, when I worked in my career as a nurse, worked part-time because of real estate. And it was because just understanding that with real estate, you are leveraging your money. And I learned pretty quick that there's 3 ways to make money with it. You're going to get cash flow each month. You're going to get your tenants to pay down your mortgage. And in most cases, there's going to be appreciation at the end of the day that you're going to make money with. So that's the idea I went with. Then fast forwarding even further to about 2006, somewhere in there, I started lending my own money. I started with registered funds like RSP money. I started lending that to other real estate investors for mortgages. And I realized, wow, this is great. I mean, I'm making way more money doing this than if I had it in mutual funds. That in itself is a whole topic if people wanted to learn more. But bottom line, I at that time, I read a book. It's actually worth writing down and getting it. It's still on Amazon. It's still relevant today. And it's called The RRSP Secret. And what that book did for me, it not only showed me what I can do with my RSPs and now today with our TFSA money, it showed me the concept of why the banks keep making money. They're using money to keep making money, and we can do the same thing. We just have to be strategic about it and understand the principle behind it. We're not physically working, we're getting our money to work for us. So I started doing that, and then as time went on, I had more people coming to me to borrow funds than I had enough money to lend them. So then I started kind of connecting people. I would say, let's say I knew Ashton at the time and said, oh, well, gee, I don't have enough money, but Ashton has some money he could lend you. And I would show people how to do it, and then they were also making money. But at that point, it was a mortgage broker who came to me and said, Sue, you better be careful. You are now facilitating and helping people in the mortgage industry. You're technically brokering, and you need to be licensed. So that's when I made a conscious decision to go and get my mortgage license. And right from the beginning, I've only ever, I'm not interested in doing regular mortgages to help people. There's a lot of people out there that can do that for you. My goal is to just stay in the private space. So what I do, I'm still a very active real estate investor, but I also, doing the mortgages, I recently opened my own brokerage, and as Ashton said at the beginning, it is called Private Money for Mortgages. I tried to keep the name very specific so people know exactly what they're getting. And so I connect lenders and borrowers. And there's many reasons why people will need to borrow private money. Again, we could get into that with more of a very specific presentation, but for today's talk, Ashton wanted me to just kind of introduce the concept and appreciate that I guess we can say there's more to real estate investing than just buying a house. You can be involved in many aspects. Right? You could be a silent partner with somebody, or you could be lending your money in a mortgage, or you could be taking money that you have and lending it out, or not that you have, that maybe even a line of credit that you have. There's also, as a real estate investor, you're going to have times where you can no longer qualify at the bank. If you continue down the path, it just happens to all of us. You hit a wall of being able to get financing, and you have to appreciate that there's money out there and it's in private money. So then you want to learn how you can access those funds in order to keep building your real estate portfolio. Ashton, like, is there something specific that I should direct for people at this point?
Yeah, actually, I personally have a question.
Yeah.
I always thought in the past that borrowing money from a private lender is not worth it because I get charged interest of 8%. So how do you make sense of it?
That's an excellent question. And I'll tell you, that in itself scares people off because they're just thinking about the quote interest rate, and the cost of borrowing money is very expensive. But if it's a means to an end, it's really not. And I'll use myself as a good example. I just recently did a project, like I've done lots of projects where I buy a house or townhome or whatever. But I make sure when I buy it, all my numbers make sense. So I usually try and buy them under market value, that they need renovations. And then once I've done the renovations, then it's at a whole new value and I sell it at that point. Or you could be refinancing it with the bank to keep it in your portfolio. Or you could bring on a joint venture partner who they're the one that has to qualify. So there's different avenues. So I'll give you an example of, let's see, I could give you the one I'm doing right now, but I don't have it sold yet. It's on the market, but I'll tell you, I started off, I bought it for $660,000. It's in Burlington. We have put close to $100,000 of rentals into it. My cost to borrow the money and do the renovations, I did that totally with private money. And how I did that was the mortgage itself, I got it at 80% loan to value. Okay, so we're talking a $525 mortgage. The down payment and the rental costs, how I got that money was I took another property that I own and I put a second mortgage on it. Okay, some people have the idea that they can get 100% financing. Well, I just did 100% financing, but not with one property. Okay, there still has to be equity in the property. So when I did that with the other, with getting the money for the down payment and the rentals, that was also very expensive money, but I worked that into my numbers. So here's where I was at. I purchased for $660,000. I figure with 6 months of holding costs, it will have cost me over $30,000 in financing. Now, somebody listening to this might go, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. Well, it is. Well, it wasn't just the financing, it was all holding costs, okay? It would be if at the end of the day, my end number doesn't make sense. So I already knew in the marketplace in Burlington that this home, if I renovate it properly, I can sell it for around $900,000. So if I've purchased at $660,000, $30,000 in financing and holding costs, there's $690,000. If I put $100,000 of rentals into it, there's $790,000. And if I'm going to sell it for $900,000, do you think I'd mind using private money at an expensive amount?
Absolutely. And just out of curiosity, what is the rate on your private?
Okay, on the first mortgage, I paid 9%. Sometimes you can get it on a first mortgage, just to give people an idea, you can get as low as maybe 7 and higher. So if people were going through my brokerage, most times my lenders will lend between 7 and 10%. Okay, and there's usually a lender fee in there as well. So it might be 8% plus 1, or it might be 9% plus 1. Okay, just don't be afraid of that number, but you got to figure it out. What's it going to cost? Now, with the second mortgage, I paid 11% on it. A second mortgage is usually considered more expensive. They can be anywhere between 10 and 15%. Okay, so even though I'm in the business, it's not like I got any discount. I didn't even care about trying to get a discount. I just go to one of my lenders, because the whole point is, and from my perspective as a broker, I look at it, my lender needs to make good money. That's why he's lending his money. And my borrower needs these numbers to make sense for their project. So when people call me, like when borrowers call to do it, usually I usually encourage people, call me before you've actually gotten the property. so that we can brainstorm to see if this truly is a good fit and that you truly are figuring out all your costs. Because it's not just the interest rate that's so expensive, right? There's the interest rate, there's a lender fee, there's the broker fee, you have to pay for an appraisal, and you also have to pay for the lawyer for the lender. So when you figure all those costs in, I mean, you just have to know them. That's what it boils down to.
And Sue, do you know why they were selling it for so low, like 660?
Well, I got it. He was motivated. He was a motivated seller that needed to move. And so I helped him out of his position. There were different things that we worked out because he wanted to get out right away. He wanted to leave things behind. Like it worked out. We actually worked on this for close to a year. Not a year, sorry, 6 months. He always knew my price. And I said, but if you can sell it, by all means, go, like, do it elsewhere. But he couldn't. If he had used a realtor, he would have, it would have been right down there. If he had have gone a lower price, it would have been the same. So in the end, he said, yeah, I'll take your offer. So there are lots of opportunities out there, whether they're on MLS with a realtor or privately.
It is. I recently bought one of those homes in Burlington for, well, it wasn't for flip, it was for a family to move in, but I easily got it close to $45,000 under the market value because the family inside, they had some issue. They really have to sell and go. So I bought it privately, and I come across this kind of scenario here and there as well. But as you mentioned properly, is not all the scenarios are best fit. You really have to cherry pick the one that makes sense. So if I'm not mistaken, any of this flipping project should be done reverse, means backward.
Exactly. Yes. And that's the mistake that a lot of people do. They get so excited about the deal. They're not crunching the numbers. They're getting emotionally caught up in it. And you just got to know it's all in numbers. And if you know what so the after repair value, we call it ARV. Like people go, oh, what's the ARV? So in my case, I knew, and I'm, like I say, I'm just in the presence right now of selling it. I know the ARV is between, say, 860 and 900,000 to sell it at. And I knew that right from the beginning. So now, mind you, I do have to admit, I bought this as of March 19th, as COVID started. I was extremely nervous once it happened because nobody had a crystal ball and knew what was going to go down, right? But in most cases, we could always see where things are going. But when I say nervous, I was nervous from the point of view I wouldn't make the money that I expected to. I sure as heck wasn't going to lose money because I had such large margins. So, excellent. I mean, that's just one. I mean, I've done ones, like, for instance, I did one in Hamilton at one point. It was at the end of the day, with all my financing, with my renos, the works, I ended up making $80,000, and it was only a $230,000 sale. This was about 4 years ago, that one. Like, there's just it's just knowing your number, but the point is to know that you don't have to be using your own money. You don't have to, those ones you can't always go to the bank, because if it's a property that needs renovations, they won't touch it.
Okay, Suzanne, a quick question from one of our audience here. What approaches do you use to find this kind of private sellers or this kind of deals, I would say, and how often do you find them?
Well, see, I'm so active out there. I pay attention to everything that's going on. And so, I mean, I also, I have my nephew who's come on board with me and doing some of the wholesaling ideas. So he's out there hunting for the properties. But prior, when it was just myself, I'd be on Kijiji. I find an area that I like. Like at one point, an area that I was really focused on was Brantford. I loved Brantford. And I mean, not that I don't now, but it was, so I would get to know the areas. And even if it means you drive around the streets and see houses that look like, man, if they were fixed up, they'd be great. Well, there might be a reason why they're a mess. So you dig a little deeper. You don't be afraid to knock on doors. You maybe put a note in their mailbox. Like, you just do lots of different creative things to find these under market properties. But also, people should let people like yourself, Ashton, know, because obviously you come across lots that you can't even list it for them because they're upside down, right?
True,
So
very true.
yeah, so it's like, so you could be going, oh, well, this is an off-market one. I mean, I could make, so it's like people just have to be networking constantly and looking for property. And there are times it doesn't have to be an under-market property. It could be a property that, I mean, let's use Hamilton. That because it needs work, it's only selling for, say, 400,000, but we know darn well with 70,000 of renos, it's going to now sell for 650. Like, if you know your market, you know what needs to happen.
Okay, this kind of borrowing money from the lender is ideal for this kind of flipping. Do you also recommend that one for buy and hold?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's I know a lot of people that once they've bought the property, and like I say, they'd love to go to the bank right off the bat to get a mortgage, but the bank won't mortgage it. It needs too much work. So they take the private money, they use it for just a few months. Then once the property is now looking really nice, then they refinance it at the new price, and they hold it in their portfolio. Absolutely. I mean, the only reason I don't tend to do that anymore is I've been downsizing my portfolio the last few years. That's my personal strategy. I don't want to be a landlord like I was in the past. That's just where I'm at in my journey. But some people who are just getting started, you're trying to build your portfolio. So, and I guess it just boils down to in general, that people have to understand, don't be afraid of private money. Because it's expensive, it has a very big place to help you build a portfolio.
So that's a good entry for some people who wants to get into purchasing something, getting help from a private lender to start the engine, and then a few months down the road, they can always move to a conventional bank. That's a good strategy.
And it could be something as simple as the person, maybe the person who's gone to the bank, and right now you don't qualify for a mortgage because of your debt ratios, or, there's something. So you need maybe the next 8 months or a year to fix all that. Well, then it doesn't mean that you can't still pick up the property that you want to purchase while you're working on fixing your credit.
And Susan, what is a lender's looking at when I knock at the doors, say I'm interested to borrow some money? What are they asking?
Okay, and that's another good question, because the difference between a private lender and a bank is a private lender is either an individual, a group of individuals, or a business. Okay, those are the people lending their money. Whereas the banks have, as we know, very strict criteria, and they want you to hand over everything but your firstborn, right? I mean, you just have to jump through so many hoops. Whereas private lenders are more concerned about the property. That's their number one concern. Is it marketable? So I'll just give you an example. A property in Toronto, absolutely marketable. A property in Timmins, not so much. Okay, it doesn't mean they couldn't get a mortgage on it, but that doesn't fit a big tick mark when we're going through all the things with it. Another thing that you need to look at is the loan to value. And what that means is, let's just use a simple number. If the house was worth 100,000, a private lender will only lend you 80% of that, so 80,000. They need that other cushion, that if worst case scenario you did not pay, that's how they get their money out, because the lawyer would start the process and put you into foreclosure. Well, it'd actually be power of sale, and the house would be listed with a realtor, and once it's sold, the lawyer would get paid, the realtor would get paid, and the lender would get paid, and if there's anything left over, then the homeowner would. Okay, so those are, we always, again, I work backwards. The worst case scenario ever when somebody's lending their money is how safe is it? So that loan to value is critical. I know some people will lend their money at even 95% loan to value. I know some people have lent money to friends at 100% loan to value. My word for them is foolish. That's not a smart move, because whether you're a good friend of somebody, I trust them to the bitter end, they say, has nothing to do with that. Life happens. And if all of a sudden they can't pay for that mortgage, you're sitting with a property that there's no added value for you to get your full funds out.
That's true. And going back to what you said originally, finding this kind of deals.
Yeah.
Listen, some people working for an entire year to make $80,000, $90,000, right?
Yes.
They go to work every morning, starting from 9, go all the way to 5, come back home tired. They spend the entire year to earn $100,000. If earning $100,000 is so hard for so many people, then you can put a little bit of effort to go find these places that are selling for less. And I tell you a few ways to do that I do, and I still do all the time. I used to build homes in Etobicoke, and that's one of the way I was using. Write on the piece of paper, I'm interested to buy your house. If you have any question, give me a call with your phone number. Just send, I don't know, whatever you want to those property that has some potential. But however, you have to study, you have to do your study before you knock at any doors.
That's right. They have to know that market.
Exactly.
Right?
I was looking for bungalows not in good shape, and then I would send my flyers one by one. I spend half a day, maybe sometimes once a week, and I was getting some response back, and I was converting. So that's one of the way. We had a few weeks ago, we had a gentleman called Matthew. He was here, and he was saying he gives Tim Hortons card to the mailman and tell them if there is anything that they come across in this neighborhood that is not in good shape, means tenanted, and they're not taking care of it. Maybe the owner wants to get rid of it. So that is another hint to find those kind of properties.
And looking for tired landlords, that's another one. You could be going to Kijiji, and when you're seeing people have their ads for rent, and they're still out there for rent, you might pick up the phone. You know, I mean, it's like, just get creative, think outside the box. You're looking for something under market value, and how you're going to find it. And don't be nervous to talk to people.
I've got a question, actually.
Go ahead, Luna.
Susan, hi.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
I've got two questions. The first one was, so if I was to come and say I want to give you money for you to invest it for me, what would be the minimum amount?
Okay, that's a good question. Now, first off, I don't touch your money. I would love to, but I don't.
I will touch it. I will touch it.
Yeah. No, so what happens, that would mean, Lola, that you're asking, can you become a lender? So there's a process that, first off, in order to be a lender with me, I say you have to have at least 100,000. And I used to say 50, but I've had to up that amount because it's really hard to place 50,000 these days. People are needing more. So it's the minimum 100. It could be in cash or registered funds. And you'd have to fill out a lender profile. These are all rules through our mortgage industry. I need to know who you are to make sure this isn't laundered money or whatever. And I need 2 pieces of ID. Now, I would also not interview you. What it is get to know you, because I need to know your level of understanding of all this. And I'm taking notes on every one of my lenders. I get to know them, because when I'm presenting a mortgage to someone, I need to know, are they a savvy investor that's been doing this a long time, or are they new to it? And I need to take more time to educate them. Because the whole point as a lender, you need to know what you're doing. And my role in that is to educate you. So then from there, you're on my list. And as I get mortgages, I present them to my lenders. Does that help?
Thank you. The second one was, so if I were to invest in a property and I needed like a down payment money, do you do stuff like that as well?
Well, the down payment, again, though, everything that I do, because I'm that matchmaker, right, between my lenders and my borrowers. So when a lender comes on board and I say, don't worry, I will never present to you something that's too risky. I keep it that it's it's within a certain parameter. So for a down payment, if you're going to borrow that privately, they still need security. So the only way to do that would be either A, you're getting that down payment from another property, or it would be what we call a blanket mortgage, where there might be two properties attached. Oops, I'm hearing lots of.
Yeah, Alham
Wait a
needs
sec.
to mute his phone or his thingy.
Yeah.
Alham?
Anyway, so yes, you can get money for the down payment, but it will not come with the purchase. Okay, so for instance, if you're purchasing and I'm lending you the first mortgage, okay, of 80%, and you need, say you have 10% of your own money, and now you need another 10% for the down payment, one of the options might be to ask the seller if they'll do a vendor take back. Another option might be to take money from another property, or if we blanketed another property in that deal so that your 80% loan to value is based on two properties. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so many, so that's why there's nothing cookie cutter about this. Every deal is different, every scenario, so that's why the conversation in the beginning is critical. And when I tell borrowers all the stuff I need from them, we need it for a reason so that we can assess the whole scenario and then get back to you with the best one that'll help you move forward.
Yes, I completely understand. Thank you.
Yes.
And going back to what Lola said, thank you, Lola, for participating here. One of the things I always did from beginning, like I'm doing investment in real estate for 16 years, is I just accidentally went through that path, buy and hold. What I did originally, I was looking for properties that would make me a huge growth. I was not concerned about positive cash flow. And that's what's happened after that as a result is, after a short period of time, let's say 5 years, I noticed I built so much equity in that house that I can easily take it out and invest it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Versus, that's why whenever I talk to any investor, I ask them, what is your plan? Are you planning on buying one house? Then buy any house. If you're planning on building more based on the first one, then buy somewhere that you have the maximum growth and appreciation of that property, because 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, you can pull the money out of this and buy your second one, and buy the second one in a good area that is growing amazingly good. Then with these two, you can always buy the next one after that. So that's a strategy an investor should have in mind from the beginning. That will help them.
Now, Ashton, you said there, like, okay, 5 years down the road. Now, I know there's lots of people, and I'm one of them, and was one of them, too impatient. It's like, I'm not waiting another 5 years. So that's where you learn to get creative, and you use private money to maybe somebody needs to focus on doing 2 or 3 flips, and now take that seed money and move forward. Right? So it's a combination of all these ideas that we're discussing, and knowing that there's many ways to be investing in real estate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In any conversation I have with investors, I try to kind of interview them as I talk to them. There are 3 essential things I notice in any real estate investment that we need. One is your passion and your desire. You really want to get in there, which is excellent. So the second one here is to making your team of experts, and all of them should be expert. Doesn't matter, is a lawyer, is an appraiser, is a mortgage broker, real estate agent, doesn't matter. They have to have an extensive knowledge of real estate investments.
Totally agree.
And thirdly is, here's your action. You have to stop speculating, stop sitting and watching, being on the fence. Let's take action. And that's what's happened to me when I bought my first house in Kitchener. I went through Excel sheet for hours and hours, and finally someone said, listen, put the numbers aside. What you choose is the right way. The area that you picked is a good area. Let's just jump in there. So
pull the trigger.
That's it. And that's what you have to do. Sometimes you have to do. Now, going back to the flipping idea and using the private, as you said, it's not always the property that you're going to go through construction, you make it beautiful. Sometimes you can add a new feature to the house. For instance, in Mississauga, I come across many properties that you can add a legal basement. And adding a legal basement, it adds value. And when you call it legal, automatically pay people, they're not looking for trouble, mostly the insurance company. And insurance companies are very picky. Might not be at the beginning, but God forbid something happened, you're nailed. So some of these contractors, investors, they go and buy these properties that are the best suit for this kind of purposes. They finish the basement, make it legal, and not there. They bring a tenant. Once you show, like I'm seeing it on MLS for some of the investors that I know, as soon as you see the house is renting and give you $3,000, $4,000 a month, the antenna goes up. You focus on that and you're willing to pay whatever they ask for.
Yeah.
But you have to know where you buy. For instance, if you go to the city of Milton and you try to make you buy this a semi or a townhouse with the intention of making a finished legal basement, well, surprise. Before that, you have to go to the city of Milton and you will discover that you cannot make a legal basement for semi. You have to buy a detached house as of today's law. Maybe tomorrow is different. So there are many things you have to prepare and do your due diligence before you take any action.
Well, it does boil down then, Ashton. That's why somebody needs a good realtor like yourself. So that they know, they don't have to know these things. They rely on you to be able to do it for them.
Susan, did you invest in any other cities besides the?
Oh yeah, I've invested in Hamilton, Burlington, Brantford, Collingwood. I actually have one in Collingwood I'm doing right now. It's a big one. Like, I mean, it's much bigger than any of these other ones that I've been doing. I've not done any multifamily. I was going in that direction at one point. And then I switched gears and got into private lending. So, see, there's just so many avenues that you can do. I've done rent to own as an exit strategy. So when I say certain things, like I've taken different courses along the years, as I'm sure many people have. And if they haven't, they shouldn't be afraid to spend money on the education, because you need to know what you're doing. And I've done all kinds of creative strategies, including one that we call AFS, which is agreements for sale to purchase, just different things that, so you kind of at the end, now I'm in a position where I look at, when I'm buying a house, I kind of look at all my strategies and go, what's the best one to help me out? What's plan A, plan B, plan C? So you build on knowledge. So for instance, I don't know who all is listening to this webinar, but if it's somebody brand new, they have to walk before they can run, right? If it's somebody that's been in the game a long time and maybe their back is against the wall with the banks, now they're starting to think about where can private funds come into it. If it's somebody that wants to get in the game of real estate investing but hasn't got any money, now there's something I'll talk about for a second. They have no money, they have the passion, they're getting educated. Now how do they move forward? And for those kind of people, what I usually suggest is, if you literally have nothing that you can even start with your own down payment, then make sure you truly get knowledge and you could attract somebody with money and bring them on as a joint venture partner.
I 100% agree. And as I always say, for your education, whether you pay ahead of time or you pay once you're in the field, once you're in the field, the payment that you pay for your education is going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be there.
Yeah. Mind you, then there's the other side of the coin. I know so many people that they take course after course after course and they never pull the trigger. Yes. That's not good either. Once you learn what you're doing and get a feel, just pick something and be focusing on it. Don't focus on everything. Another way that somebody that doesn't have any money, and they want to start off, it might be what we call wholesaling. And of course, I know you know what that is, Ashton, but maybe some people listening don't. And it would mean that they're finding a property that they know has great value. They're going to get it under contract with the owner, but at the end of the day, they're not the one that's going to purchase it. They're going to more or less sell the contract to somebody else who does want to purchase, and they'll make a little bit of money on the side for doing that. Again, that can be building their, building. But I use that strategy when I find a property and I'm too busy to do it myself. I go, oh, well, gee, this is a great property. I don't have time for this. Oh, maybe I'll wholesale it.
True. I've seen that, and I've done that in the past. In a current version of conversation, we call it assignment as well.
Yeah.
And the way it works, I come to Susan and say, Susan, you have a beautiful house. Are you planning on selling? You said, yes, I'm planning on selling it. So what I do for you, I would write an agreement. With that agreement, I would purchase your house in, let's say, 6 months from now. You're not rushed to sell it. So you give me a right to sell it, or to buy it, to buy it. And in that agreement, I also insert a clause that we're going to discuss about it, that if my brother, whoever, wants to buy it, then you give me a right to pass it on to him. And that's what's happened. I go find Mr. A, B, C, whatever, that is willing to buy your house for, I know the price, but let's say $50,000, $100,000 more. And then I come bring it along and I match it together.
Yeah.
And I take the difference.
Yeah.
That can happen. As I said, if you are after making this kind of money, you have to be proactive and looking for this kind of opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay. Now going back to buying and improving property, whatever anytime I see an investor thinking and going that direction, I always warn them. Improving a property is not a cookie cutter. You cannot go to Toronto, use the same style of finishing, bring it to Mississauga, bring it to Hamilton, expecting to get the same result. No, you have to know the market. When you go to Toronto, people in Toronto, they're professional. They see something different. People in Hamilton, they would appreciate something different. It doesn't resonate with them if you put it, let's say, a newer style, modern style, or luxury things. They don't appreciate, they don't value, they don't pay the same thing. So study your market, know where you go. If it's worth it, I always recommend go with a real estate agent, take the brain, go for a few hours, few days, just to study, see what's happening in that neighborhood before you take the next step. Some areas such as Hamilton, what are the good project there could be a mixed use. You buy a property, the main floor is commercial, second floor is residential, you improve it and sell it. Sometimes it's easier to sell it to the investors, see if they can have a duplex there. So all of these projects are different in different neighborhoods. And I'm sure you have the same experience, Susan.
Sorry, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, do you loan money or do private mortgages for incorporations as well?
Oh, yes. Yep. So
do you loan up to 80%?
It is usually up to 80%. I mean, every once in a while, it might be 85% if there's other aspects that are very, that are good. But for the most part, we stick with the idea of 80% loan to value of the appraised value. So that can be a bonus because, for instance, the property that I bought, and I'm using the last one because it's right there in my head, for $660, but I was able to get my first mortgage based on the appraisal, which the appraisal came in, I think, at $710. Okay, so sometimes that can work in your favor too. So you're really not, so it is more than 80% of your purchase price, but as long as the appraisal backs it.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And the appraisal is, a lot of people say, oh, I'll go and get the appraisal and bring it to you. It's like, no. The lender wants the appraisal. The borrower does not see the appraisal. This is unfortunate. This is how it works. The borrower pays for it, but the lender gets the appraisal. It's written out to them. And it's just, it prevents fraud and all kinds of things.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Susan, is there anything we can do with RRSP money?
Oh, yes. So if people have RSP or TFSA or RIF would be for your older population, LIRA, you can use all of those in mortgages. Again, that's where I would suggest getting that book, The RRSP Secret. If people had questions, they're more than welcome to, to give me a call. I can explain more. But what it means is that they must take the money that they already have in a fund right now. Let's just say it's with RBC, in a, I don't know, bunch of mutual funds. That has to get moved over to a trust company. And the trust company that I like to work with is Olympia Trust. They're out of Calgary, but there's also Community Trust. There's also Canadian Western Trust. There's many other ones, but those are the three that I personally will work with. And it's only so that I don't deal with way too many, that I don't get to know all their rules. And that means that your money has to be with them before it can be lent on a mortgage.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Susan, for sharing all your knowledge and information. If there is no one else with any question, Susan, maybe within next few weeks, maybe September, I think we can have another conversation. You can come up and share with us another strategy that you use successfully and how we can all make more money using different strategy. Now I put Susan's number on the Zoom group chat. Her phone number is 519-803-1642. My number, you can always reach me at 647-407-4049. And if you have any question, give us a call. Or you can simply email me as well. And Susan, thank you very much for coming. It was an honor and pleasure to have you.
Oh, well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, Ashton. Yeah, the next time I'll have my slides to show very specifically what topic that, because there's so many avenues, right, of private lending that we can get into.
Thank you very much, Susan. And thank you, everybody, for attending this group. And see you next week.
All right. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks. Bye. Bye.